The Writing Way with Amanda Nicholson and Andy N.
The Writing Way with Amanda Nicholson and Andy N. Welcome to The Writing Way. I am Andy N.
And I'm Amanda Nicholson.
Amanda, what is The Writing Way?
It's a podcast hosted by both of us and talking about writing and publishing and helping authors. The Writing Way with Amanda Nicholson and Andy N.
The Writing Way with Amanda Nicholson and Andy N. Amanda,
Andy,
what are we doing today?
we're doing The Writing Way and we've got our first guest.
Yes. Now, who is our first guest, Amanda?
He is a man called Phil Woodford. Do you want me to read his bio before I introduce him?
Yes, please, Amanda, go for it.
Okay, so Phil Woodford is an experienced trainer and lecturer specialising in the areas of marketing, communications, media, business psychology, copywriting and creativity. His company, Here Comes the Cavalry, helps develop the potential of business and organisations across a variety of sections. And he also has a book out called AI and the Redundant Human. And he has a Substack page called Redundant Human, which is an extension of that.
Brilliant. What are we talking to him about today in this podcast?
We're talking about AI because I've taught it apart enough, so it's somebody else's turn now.
Yeah, we'll talk about people want to go in the writing way. We are talking about his opinion, and he backs this up quite marvelously as well on what AI is doing to the creative industry. Okay, when the podcast starts after this little ping in 2 seconds, you will hear me asking him to please introduce himself to everybody. Enjoy. See you all on the other side of the podcast.
The Writing Way with Amanda Nicholson and Andy N.
The Writing Way with Amanda Nicholson and Andy N. Give us a bit of a background about yourself as a person and what led you down the path that you're going on now.
Yeah, well, my background's as a copywriter. So I've worked in places like advertising agencies in the past, and been involved in that world. But I became freelance, and I kind of, there's two routes when you're a freelance copywriter. There's two things you can do. You can be a specialist, and you can be really niche and do something very particular, or you can be a generalist. And basically, I'm the latter. I'd probably write anything anyone would pay me to write. That way, I kind of work on the basis that maybe there'll be something going on, and there'll be a chance to pay the rent, kind of thing. But I've also been working as a trainer, so I train people in writing skills, and the people that I teach typically are people who work in marketing and communications, and they're writing stuff like content for websites and social media posts and emails and all of that kind of thing. At the moment, what I'm doing is I'm writing quite a bit about AI and the impact on AI. It does have a direct impact on the kind of work I do, because obviously we've got AI being used to write stuff. So, I have a personal vested interest, but I was also quite interested in reading what these tech guys are saying in the States, the likes of Elon Musk and Sam Altman, people like this. They're all talking about a world where there won't be any jobs in the future. And I started looking at this and thinking, how does this even begin to work? I mean, we all need jobs to survive. I think Elon Musk was on record as saying we could do one as a hobby if we liked. Well, I reckon if you're a multi-billionaire, that kind of makes sense. But for most of us, we need money to eat and money to pay the bills. And so that's really how I got into this, Andy, just starting to dig around and thinking a bit more about what does this world look like that they're claiming we're heading toward.
I've seen like a lot of jobs that are affected by AI just in general, but specifically copywriting, what changes have you seen as a result of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of copywriters now, Amanda, who are struggling more. And I would say it's particularly noticeable with freelancers. If you like, they're a bit like the canary in the coal mine. They are the people who are brought in when often places like marketing agencies and advertising agencies and these kinds of places, their own staff can't cope with the workload, and freelancers are brought in often to do that kind of work. Sometimes freelancers also, have relationships with their own clients, but increasingly there's we have to be honest, since ChatGPT came along, there's more and more people who think, I don't need to be paying someone to do this. I don't need to pay an agency to do my marketing. I don't need to pay my freelance copywriter to write stuff to go on my website, because with a little bit of magic and a couple of prompts, I can create it myself. And so if you look on places like LinkedIn, you'll see a lot of quite worried people who work as copywriters who put a brave face on it. I mean, there's a spectrum here, isn't there? Some people are brutally honest about the fact that they haven't got any work and it's causing them all kinds of financial problems and psychological problems and so on. And I have great respect for people who are brave enough to do that. There's other people who might be reluctant to say things like that because they don't want to seem like they're in a desperate situation. So they put a brave face on it. But there's no doubt that bubbling under the surface, there's this thought that maybe a lot of this kind of work could go in the future. I'm fortunate. I've got a few clients that are sticking with me and they see my value over the machine. But no one's immune to this.
Yeah, I've had a couple of clients and agencies that have come out and said they're using AI now. And then when I've brought it up later, they've backtracked and says, "Oh, we're not. I don't know where you got that idea from."
I think you
Yeah,
did
well, I
right.
mean,
I think you did right. Sorry, Phil. Pardon me. I was going to say then you did right there then, because we both know a creative agency near Manchester. They laid off half their staff when they went to ChatGPT.
I know
Sorry,
what you
anyway,
mean.
sorry, pardon
Yeah,
me.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think, this is the trend. I mean, the other thing, when people are freelance, it's not so obvious to see, is it? Like if someone gets laid off from a job, their full-time job, well, there's a bit of a hullabaloo about it. You can count the numbers, can't you? You can say, well, this number of people got laid off from this firm or from somewhere else. And eventually they start showing up in government statistics for unemployment and what have you. If you're a freelancer, and it's not just copywriters, of course, it could be someone working as, say, a graphic designer or a videographer or something like that. They just see they're getting fewer and fewer gigs, or that they're going longer and longer between jobs and they're finding it harder to make ends meet, but they're not no one's registering it because they're still technically doing what they always did. And it's very hidden. And I think that's going to be a feature in the next couple of years. A lot of people in these kind of hidden roles finding that they can't make ends meet anymore.
yeah,
And then what are they going to do? Well, probably they're going to start looking for jobs elsewhere. Maybe in the gig economy, they're going to start looking for, the jobs in retail, hospitality, Uber, and all of that kind of stuff in order to pay their bills. But there's going to be huge oversubscription for those kind of jobs potentially. It's going to be
yeah.
really dog eat dog, I fear.
I know you've mentioned LinkedIn, and the thing I come across a lot on LinkedIn, a lot of people praising AI, like they don't seem to notice the downside of it, and it's
Yeah,
a bit like turkeys getting excited for Christmas.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting
That's
you
a good way
say
of putting it. Yeah.
it is a good way of putting it. I mean, I'm not a Luddite who kind of thinks that technology is bad or that, oh, I would never touch it. I mean, I'm quite happy to use something like ChatGPT if I felt that it could help explain something to me that I didn't understand or whatever. I'm not kind of some kind of prima donna about this. It's just, you're absolutely right, Amanda. There is a dark side to it, which a lot of people don't seem to want to face up to. I mean, when you talk about turkeys voting for Christmas, it's almost like the turkeys are operating machines at the, the, at the
Yeah,
slaughterhouse, because people are kind of being forced through peer pressure and pressure from their employers to make use of the very technology that is maybe ultimately going to do away with their jobs. Maybe they're being told, well, you should be using this stuff to make yourself more efficient in your work. And you're going to be ever so more productive because you can get rid of all that boring drudgery that takes you so long each week you can cut that right down. and then you can focus on all the important stuff. And the problem with that idea is, first of all, a lot of people are in jobs where the boring drudgery is the job. Let's be honest about that. You know, some people might be lucky to have very kind of strategic and creative parts of their job, and that they can spend more time on that. But a lot of people, the boring stuff is the job. And the other issue is, of course, that the AI will be coming for the other parts of the job as well. And so you're right that there's an optimism on LinkedIn about it all. And I think it's, you know, LinkedIn's generally a very kind of optimistic place. If they invented time travel machines, and people were worrying about, like, we could go back and kill our grandparents and then we wouldn't exist anymore, and that, people would be saying, yeah, but think of the benefits. You can get a job done before you've even started. You know, that's the whole culture of LinkedIn. But I think it is a little bit naive. And I do worry that we should be actually looking ahead to some of the issues that it's going to provoke and trying to address them.
I liked what you said in one of the articles, which I think is why I actually contacted you in the first place, where a lot of people are talking about AI will, someone who knows how to use AI will replace you. And you said, actually, AI will replace them. And that was just basically what I've been trying to tell people for ages now. Just like, yeah, exactly. It's like, why has nobody thought of this before? And why is nobody else saying it?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's lots of really weird ideas that kick around about AI. So that, you know, people will say, yeah, oh, you won't be replaced by AI. You'll be replaced by someone who knows how to use it. Well, the thing is, we all know how to use it. I mean, unless you like that, there is a kind of layer of AI that is, you know, serious, which is kind of people who actually know stuff about deep learning and machine learning, and, you know, and can command impossible sums of money from big tech companies and so on. So that's a super elite group of people who understand all the technical aspects of it. And there are people who maybe will understand, have to understand it at a bit more detailed level. Let's say you're using AI to, I don't know, sort of as a microbiologist or something like that, or you're looking at patterns of transport flow in a city like Manchester, for example, right? Maybe you need to understand what the AI is doing at a greater depth than the average person. But for most of us, our experience of AI is just giving conversational prompts to things like ChatGPT or Midjourney or something like that. It's not rocket science. And to say that that's going to save your job, in my view, is very naive. It's not going to distinguish you at all. It's a bit like going into a job interview in 2005 and saying you can do a Google search, or telling someone that you can use Word. You know, it's kind of, yeah, well, it might be important, but no one's going to be rolling out the brass band for it. So, I mean, I think that idea is a very strange idea. Another kind of what I would describe as a myth about it would be that, okay, well, maybe the jobs will go, but new jobs will come along. That's another thing that you hear from the optimists. And I'm thinking, hold on a second. So the AI has been so super clever that it's got rid of all our old jobs, but now it's not clever enough to do the new ones that it's creating. And it's going to have to come back and ask human beings to do them. Somehow I see that as really, really implausible. I think any new work that comes out of AI, or the vast majority of it, will be done by AI just as easily as the jobs now that can be done by AI. So I'm quite pessimistic about that.
Yeah, and the thing I've noticed as well is saying, oh, you should use AI. But the only people that want you to use AI are people that think it takes less time. So obviously that's going to reflect in the pay as well. So they're going to pay you less. But in reality, it doesn't take less time if you're going to correct it all, because it's not always very accurate, is it?
Yeah, I mean, from a writing perspective, obviously we could say, well, there's still a role for people who write, because we could give the prompts in the first place. And obviously, I mean, I don't want to belittle the idea of prompting, because if you give it complete garbage, well, obviously it's not going to produce anything very great. But equally, I don't think the prompting is rocket science, and I don't think it's the same thing as what writers have been paid to do over time. And then we could say, well, we're going to look at the output of what the AI produces, and we're going to go through it and we're going to edit that and make that better and watch out for all the stuff that the AI is made up and so on. Again, I don't think that's the same job as being a writer, important though it might be. And you're absolutely right. That becomes time consuming in itself. And another danger is in the kind of world where I'm working, where I might work for different companies who are doing different things, different organizations. Do I have necessarily the technical expertise or knowledge to look at something produced by AI and to know whether it's right or wrong? I mean, sometimes in the process of writing it myself, I would go and ask questions of people. I would be reading stuff. I'd be trying to make sure that what I said was correct. I read an output from an AI, and now what am I doing? Am I going to other people who are more expert at that stage and asking them, is this right or is it wrong? And then what's my role exactly? It's all a bit weird, really, I think. But reality is that, I think a lot of writing work is kind of shifting in that direction where, there is an element of input. The AI is involved at some stage. So use it for some initial ideas and thoughts. And sometimes people use it to create the whole thing. And then they go back and edit. And there is a kind of role for AI also, of course, in saying, here's something I've written from scratch. Take it away, please, AI, and make it more beautiful than it was before. And for less confident writers, that's quite a nice fallback. It's a bit like, the way people have used things like Grammarly stuff, except it just kind of takes everything off your hands, looks at the thing as a whole, and comes back with something better. So, I think definitely, if from a writing point of view, I think you make a very fair point that if you're going through checking stuff properly, it's not really as much of a time saving as people imagine it would be. There are some other jobs, I'm sure, where it would be a time saving. But then the danger, as you rightly point out, is that you end up working fewer hours and getting paid less. Bill Gates has said that he imagines everyone's going to work a 2-day week in the future. And my immediate response to that would be, well, yeah, are they being paid for 5 days or are they being paid for 2 days, Bill? Because again, someone else who, he doesn't have to worry, does he? But to most people, how much you're being paid for is a very kind of makes a very material difference to your life.
When you are writing from scratch and you're doing research, do you find it more difficult now? Because when you go onto Google, the first things that come up are AI written, and then just a load of ads. And even if you went into a library and bought a recent book, you don't know if that's written by a person or AI anymore.
Yeah. I should say wrote a book recently about AI, and it's 100% me. I'm going to say that. I'm going to put that out there now. There was no AI involved, but yeah, I mean, yes, yeah. This is a big thing, isn't it? The AI summaries at the top of the thing, and the danger is no one digs any further because you think, well, I've got it all sort of summed up here. I think we've all had that experience. Critical thing is if it's something that I don't know very much about. Okay, I don't know anything about, say, nuclear physics or something like that, and so I see something on the news that I don't understand. And I Google it, and it comes up, the AI summary comes up with some stuff about nuclear physics, which is at a kind of level that I can relate to, not being very good at science. Then I'd probably just go with it. I'm not gonna dig any further than that. If, however, it's about something that maybe I know more about, maybe I'm not going to be that satisfied with the AI summary, and I'm gonna go further. It's a big issue for businesses and brands, though, because traffic to their websites has fallen off a lot since Google introduced all these AI summaries, because no one's actually going to the links to the actual websites. They're just finding the stuff they need in the summary. And then the challenge for people in marketing would be, how do I get myself mentioned in the summaries if no one's going to go looking for my website? And so, yeah, this is a kind of debate I hear amongst people that I work with in the marketing industry.
That's the thing I find strange at the moment when I'm looking for opportunities. They all say, oh, must know how to use SEO. And it's like, well, does it really matter anymore?
Well, that's another very good point. Yeah, there's some people who say like SEO is dead in the water because we could move to a world very soon where I mean, in America, they've got this AI mode, which you can turn on. And then if you have AI mode on in Google, it just literally brings up the AI summary plus some sponsored links. And there are no organic links at all. SEO historically has all been about getting to the top of these organic listings. How can we rise naturally to the top? So once you've turned on the AI mode, I think that kind of undermines the whole SEO business. The other thing is people talk about AI agents now. So the idea that we are going to have all these agents working on our behalf and we give them some instructions, off they go. It's like I've got this amount to spend on a holiday and I want to go to somewhere in Southern Europe and can you find me the best deals? And off the AI agent goes to find it. Maybe if it's a smaller purchase, I say, okay, well, if it's under a certain amount of money, just go and buy it. You don't need to worry about coming back to me. Just go and find the cheapest one of this for me.
Yeah.
And these AI agents, if they do become a very big thing, and some people say they will, they won't be responding to the same stuff that traditional search engines have been looking for necessarily. The idea, keywords, for instance, which has already been something that copywriters have been kind of warned has become less and less important over time. It might be that they actually become completely irrelevant in due course, and the role of the copywriter in search engine optimization and so on fairly limited, perhaps. Do you think that's fair, Amanda?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'd be a bit worried about asking AI to plan my holiday though, because I'd imagine just getting there and finding it's wasteland and there's nothing there and it's lied to me.
You're now making me think of a story. I wish I could remember where it was. But it's somewhere in the Far East where an elderly couple traveled a long way to a location because they'd seen a video of people on a cable car and lots of beautiful sights, and you could have this great experience looking at all the local sites. The trouble was the video was AI created. It had a kind of news reporter fronting it, and these old people had thought it was real, and they'd actually gone there and discovered there wasn't any cable car.
Oh, good grief.
I think
Oh, dear.
that's what I'd be worried about.
One of your Substack pages before, I think it's where people talk about it. We talked about the Velvet Sundown,
Oh
which is
yeah.
AI music, and I went and played that back, well, about an hour ago, and it was horrifyingly good. But would I buy it? No. But I know. Can you just tell us your thoughts on that next?
Yeah. I mean, AI music, there's the issues for musicians happen. They're at kind of different levels in my view. There's like one big issue is the whole thing about intellectual property, and and this is across all creative industries. People feeling like their creations have been ripped off. So someone writes a novel and it's churned into these large language models. Someone creates a work of art and it's used to influence the way an illustration is produced by something like Midjourney. Or, of course, musicians produce original material only to discover it's being used to train AI. So there is the first issue is how do we get a system that properly rewards creative people for what they've done? And there's lots of court cases going on about this, all aspects of it, whether it's people who are concerned about their animations being nicked or their music or their writing, and we'll see how all this plays out. There's another level to it for musicians, in my view, which would be, what if there is a whole load of AI generated content out there that starts to swamp and crowd out the real music? So when people are on platforms like Spotify or Apple Music or something like that, you can't see the wood for the trees, and it's very hard for new and upcoming artists to make any inroads. And of course, we know that platforms like Spotify, they're paying something like 0.004 cents for every stream. And so you're fighting for every fraction of a penny. And if there's a huge kind of swamping of AI music, that's a big issue. The final question, I think, Andy, for for musicians is the most serious one of all, and the one that's the kind of makes your blood run cold a bit, which would be, what if the AI music becomes so good that it's actually as good as the music that the musicians produce themselves, or people prefer it to the musicians' work. Now that's a kind of another level which we're not at yet. I don't think we're at that with the Velvet Sundown. As you say, that's kind of like background music. It's kind of okay. It's okay and it's inoffensive, isn't it? But it's not going to set anyone's pulse racing. But do you worry, Andy, about a world where maybe the AI, the next stage of the AI could be that the music is so good you actually do want to listen to it?
Yeah, you do. It's a major concern. But you could argue with it, 'cause obviously I'm, well, the kind of musician myself, but it's like we've been heading this direction for some time anyway, when like you can put in so many effects on albums already. Auto-tune, for example, is a big one. And then like how to retune your guitar and your keyboard just by clicking a button. This is the next stage for it, really. I think you're right. We're heading in a direction where in 10 years' time, if not more, this is what the half the pop music will be.
Yeah, because I was interested. I think in my Substack I was talking about the guy that runs Deezer, the French streaming
Yeah.
platform, and he was saying that already about 18% of the music on the platform is AI generated, which I thought was an astonishingly high figure. He sees it as just going to get bigger and bigger. Deezer, to their credit, they label the music that's AI. And that's another issue. It's kind of, Spotify, you don't know whether the music's AI or not. And this is where the whole Velvet Sundown thing comes into play, because they were able to create a buzz and mystique about it. People are talking about it. Is it AI? Isn't it? That kind of thing. Shouldn't this stuff be labeled? And if it is labeled AI, does that make us more inclined to listen to it, less inclined to listen to it? Do we listen to it differently? And I think we're in pretty uncharted territory with that, because we've never been there before. It's never happened.
True.
Similar things happened with books as well, like the market being flooded with AI written books, and like Amazon seemed to be okay with it because they allow you to upload up to 3 a day, and no one's writing 3 books a day unless it's AI written.
Yeah, I mean the thought of people. I mean, what is this stuff that they're churning out? It is just frightening. Um, and again, we kind of potentially sink, don't we, in a sea of stuff that is so awful and so bland that people who are doing genuinely good stuff, whether they're writing fiction or non-fiction, whatever their genre is, they're kind of getting pulled down by the fact that there's so much rubbish that people start to take the craft less seriously. They don't have the same amount of respect possibly for the whole business of writing, which is really worrying. And then again, just like with the music, there's the volume thing. It's kind of like, how do you get found amid all of this stuff that is just so momentous in terms of volume, with people churning out the 3 books a day? I wrote a very short book on AI. It's probably about 25,000 words. Okay, but by book standards, this is short. It would be a novella if it was fiction. Unfortunately, it's fact. But it still took me 2 or 3 months to put the thing together, because I'm thinking about what I'm writing, and I'm not going to be.
When did you get to the point where you thought, I've written so much about AI now, I want to do a whole book about it?
I started off thinking I was going to. This sounds a bit pretentious. I don't know. I don't know whether I like what I'm about to say, but I started off thinking I was going to write a kind of an extended essay of some sort, But as I say that, it sounds hideously pretentious. But I was going to do this kind of extended essay on AI. I thought it might be about 10,000 words or something like that. What happened was, in the process of writing it, I just found there was more and more stuff that I wanted to say, and I was getting sort of dragged this way and that, and I was thinking, God, there's so many aspects to this. And then it got up to about 25,000 words eventually, and I realized it was kind of less of an essay and it was more of a small book. And so that's kind of how it came about. But then it's very much a particular moment in time. I've got quite a lot of references to things that have happened earlier this year. So I wanted it to be current. But then in the time since I published the book in May, lots of stuff's been going on, and you can read about things in the media. We've had like the Velvet Sundown being a great example of that. That's something that's happened since I published the book. And so that's why I created the Substack, with the idea that I'm just going to kind of keep updating with thoughts on other stuff that I'm reading, stuff that's going on, and developments. And then maybe at some point go back to the book and sort of revise it and update it and that kind of thing.
I know I did a couple of paid survey things last year where we got to sort of give our opinion on AI. And the idea was that
Remember then.
yeah, the idea was that we're supposed to go to the government and like give these ideas and say this is what these sort of agents have said and this is what these publishers have said and this author group said this and such. Whether it actually works is a different matter. But
Well, I mean, I
I
think it's better to do it than not to do it. I mean,
yeah,
I can't sort of say, we get listened to when we talk about this stuff necessarily,
yeah,
because there's definitely an agenda, isn't there, to push all the AI. But there's nothing worse than people in the government turning around saying, well, no one bothered to reply, so they must be fine with it. I think
yeah,
we do have a bit of an obligation to kind of stick our oar in. And like I said at the start, of course, this technology does have huge potential. But the places where I think it's going to be most helpful potentially to us as human beings is probably things like medicine and science. These are areas where it can do super quick things that would take humans years and years and years to do. Analyzing data, looking at scans, all of that kind of stuff. And I could well believe that it's going to lead to big breakthroughs in science and medicine. And those are probably the areas I'm most positive about. But I do think even in the areas where it could be a positive thing, it might not be a positive thing for the human beings who currently work in areas like science and medicine. Because if you're a doctor, for instance, and you have done all those years of training and you've spent all that money, you've got all these loans, so you've got to pay back, and you work for years and years, and you discover there's an AI that can read a scan better than you can, and its opinion is more valuable than yours. It's kind of like, well, why would you bother training to be a doctor in the first place if something's going to be able to diagnose better than you? Diagnosis is kind of one of the core things of being a doctor. Obviously, being able to prescribe a course of treatment to people. Geoffrey Hinton, who used to work at Google, someone's called the godfather of AI. He quit Google to so he could speak more freely about it. He said that AI would make a good family doctor because it's going to know every case. It's going to have read every medical paper. It knows everything. So that when it sees your symptoms and it sees a scan or it sees test results, whatever, it's going to know instantly better a human being who's trained for 7, 8, 9 years to get to where they are. And this is why kind of AI sort of rips at the fabric of everything that we've kind of grown up with and that we know. The idea that there are people who are very, very clever in particular areas, and you defer to them and you go to them and you say, help me, there's something wrong. And this goes across all kind of professional jobs. It's not just doctors. What about lawyers? People using things like ChatGPT to do the contract for their house or maybe their will or this kind of thing. I worry about all of that aspect of it too.
yeah. I think there have been stories in the news and things about lawyers using ChatGPT and it's backfired on them.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, in the States and Canada particularly, there have been cases where lawyers have cited cases in court, as precedents that they're using in their arguments, only to be told actually these cases don't exist because they used ChatGPT. And this is one of the big problems with these large language models. They hallucinate, they make stuff up. It's very weird, isn't it, how we're kind of very tolerant of that. This idea that we've got this technology that works kind of most of the time, but it makes some mistakes. It's a bit like, I was talking to someone recently about this, and they were saying, yeah, it's a bit like having a sat nav on a car, and every few miles it takes a random left turn in some place you've never been before, and you're kind of supposed to, oh well, that's fine. I mean, there's no other technology where we would accept this level of failure. But for some reason with AI, because it seems so extraordinary and so magical, maybe we kind of have a tendency to say, oh, well, I mean, yeah, if it makes stuff up, even if it's a load of rubbish, even if it's potentially dangerous rubbish, we should just shrug it off. And I'm not so sure we should. And then there is a debate also about how intrinsic that whole hallucinatory thing is to the technology. And I'm not an expert in the tech. I'm interested more in the human side of all of this. So I I don't know for sure, but there's a lot of people in Silicon Valley, I think, who believe that actually these large language models and similar kind of technology will always hallucinate, that it is actually part and parcel of the way in which they've been constructed. And you can sort of limit the worst of it, but you can't get rid of it. That's a big issue to my mind when you're thinking about things like professional jobs like medicine and law and accountancy and those kinds of areas, because these are areas where you can't have any mistakes. And if you do, there's kind of a lot of real world consequences to it.
A slightly different topic then. What advice would you give to people just starting out as freelancers in copywriting and marketing, apart from don't do it?
I think weirdly, I think my advice now would almost be the reverse of what it would have been in the past. Some years ago, I used to run a class in business writing at a university where people were studying creative writing. So you imagine the students have gone in there, they want to write novels, they want to write short stories, poetry, that kind of. And there was this one class they were supposed to do, which was business writing. And so, and I would teach them about things like customer service communications and marketing materials and various different things. Kind of when I went to teach these guys, basically my pitch used to be, look, this may not be the kind of stuff you want to write, but it'll give you a day job kind of thing. If you do want to be a novelist and you're waiting in the hope that you're going to be picked up by a big publisher, you're going to have to pay the bills in the meantime. So it's really useful to be able to do this kind of stuff and to have an idea of kind of how writing skills can be used in business. I actually think now, that was maybe 10 years ago, between 10 and 15 years ago when I was doing this. I actually think now my advice would almost be the reverse. And my advice to someone who's starting out would be probably try to find a voice of your own rather than rely too much on other people being willing to pay you for your commercial writing. I think there will be still people working as copywriters over the coming years, because I think some brands and organizations will value the authenticity of having a person writing stuff, and they won't just be obsessed with things being cheap and instant. But we have to be honest that a lot of businesses will be more obsessed with being cheap and instant. And so therefore there's going to be much less of this kind of work in the future. And so then I think people need to explore their own voice, and they need to be writing about something that is intrinsically interesting to at least a niche group of people. And I am quite interested in platforms like Substack. I'm not making any money from my Substack for two reasons. One, I've only just started it and there's not that many people following. And the other is I don't actually want to charge for people to subscribe, because I'd rather build up the numbers of people who are discussing these issues around AI, and I'm not interested in it as a money spinning thing. However, there is clearly the potential for platforms like that to provide some kind of living for people who are good at writing. And I do think that in the same way that platforms like Patreon, for instance, where people get sponsored to produce YouTube content and so on. So you need to find a niche, you need to find something that you care about, that you've got something to say about, and you need to do it in a way that's a bit distinctive and a little bit different, I feel. And it doesn't matter, I think, whether that is fiction or non-fiction. It could be either. And so that would be my advice, Amanda. I don't know what you think of it, or whether whether you feel I'm barking up the wrong tree.
Yeah. So to finish with, unless Andy's got any more questions,
Yeah,
to try and
I
give
will have.
people,
I will have,
yeah,
yeah.
to try and give people a bit of hope, then what professions do you think that writers could pivot into if they've had enough without spending a lot of time and money on retraining? Because not everybody can do that.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think any roles in the future that that involve just sitting at a desk and using your brain either creatively or analytically, that kind of thing. I think it's going to be very, very competitive, that kind of marketplace.
Yeah.
So the kinds of jobs that I feel are safer in the coming years are jobs that involve some kind of physical interaction with people. And so I would be looking as a writer maybe to pivot into roles involving broader communication, perhaps, where there is more kind of face-to-face interaction with people, because I don't think that's going to disappear. Just like, police officers aren't going to be replaced by robots anytime soon. Dance teachers aren't going to be replaced by robots anytime soon. And the reason for that is they despite Elon Musk's fever dreams, we're not going to have sort of 10 billion humanoid robots roaming the planet anytime soon. And so I actually think look for jobs where a physical presence it is important, but where you could also use your communication and writing skills as part of that job, Amanda.
Okay. Do you have any final questions, Andy?
Yeah, obviously, it's a couple of quick small things to wrap up with for Phil here. Obviously, if people want to check you out further, obviously, there is a book out, and we've hinted at it before, AI and the Redundant Human. Do you think that you could write a second book then with all the constantly evolving news?
I think yes, or an expanded version of the first one. I mean, maybe the first one is kind of like I say, it's a bit sort of a snapshot of a particular time and a place. It's very much kind of the spring of 2025. This is where we are, and obviously a lot of the general themes are still going to be relevant. The actual specific examples are changing all the time. And all the time I'm reading things that could have gone into the book. So yeah, I think more likely there'll be some kind of updated version, Andy, or maybe some of my Substack articles put together as a book or something like that.
Perfect. Well, good luck with it straight away, Phil. Obviously, give us the hard sell. Where can people get hold of your book?
Right. Okay. Lulu.com is where I publish. You can find it on Amazon as well, but it was published originally on Lulu. It's AI and the Redundant Human, as you say. The Substack is redundanthuman.substack.com.
Perfect. Well, that's me done as well. So, okay. Amanda.
Oh, thanks for coming on and talking to us.
Brilliant. No, it's been a great discussion. Thanks very much for the questions.
The Writing Way with Amanda Nicholson and Andy N.
The Writing Way with Amanda Nicholson and Andy N. That was a really fascinating interview we did with Amanda, actually. How do you feel about looking back at that in hindsight now?
Yeah, it makes a nice change to hear somebody say the other side of it, because I see a lot of people singing the praises of AI. And
Yeah.
even though it's not all very cheerful, it makes sense to be honest and open about it.
Yeah, he raises a lot of points behind it because I think we're in an AI world now. And obviously, we're even doing this on an AI podcast as well, really using Zoom, aren't we? So, but
Yeah, well, I was waiting to be let in. It said something about AI soon, agent or something like that.
yeah. And then you get stuff like, he said, you get AI companion at the bottom of his page on Zoom, which we're recording
Yeah.
on today. I found it an interesting podcast because it showed a different perspective on it. And I think AI, there's a lot of good said about AI. But also, there's quite a bit of things to be concerned about as well. So, what do you think?
Yeah, it's basically everywhere. You can't get away with it. You can't get away from it.
No, can't indeed. But like I said, check him out on his page because he's a fascinating gentleman, and I know we both really enjoyed talking to him the other day. So, Amanda, obviously, do you want to advise people what we're up to next then?
We'll put another episode out in a couple of weeks. We don't know what the topic is yet, but we'll come up with something to talk about.
And at the minute, like I said before, we don't have any more guests in mind, but we are always open to interesting people fit within the way, the writing way, don't we, Amanda, as well?
Yeah.
Now, obviously, for people to get in touch with you, write comments on this program, or indeed possibly even become a guest, maybe some point along the line, how do you recommend they get in touch with you?
I think the best way is to follow the Facebook page, which is The Writing Way. Oh, no, it's not. It's No Right Way.
I've been calling it The Writing Way.
It's linked to the Substack way. It's
Ah,
the Substack page. So this is called The Writing Way, but the Substack page is called No Right Way.
yeah,
Just to
because
confuse people.
you confused me then as well. So, but it's easily done that. Well, brilliant stuff, Amanda. Okay, then, folks. Yeah, Amanda, take us out tonight then.
What, should we go dancing or to dinner? Oh, sorry, you mean out of the podcast?
Oh, bloody hell. This is meant to be a serious podcast as well, but anyway, listen. Right, okay, take it away, Amanda.
Okay, bye everyone. The Writing Way with Amanda Nicholson and Andy N.
The Writing Way with Amanda Nicholson and Andy N.